We got it, guys. It's the first ever live post game show. We still have a game going on. Perilous Garrus here. You can see our names there. We have all the technology going on. Jack's
Gotta
flipping around
readjust myself. I didn't
somewhere.
realize
Jared's
it was
here.
the right way.
Jack USCHO. Jared, you probably heard too much of him already this week. The CCHA show and the Reporters Corner podcast. Guys, before we get things going, we do want to I guess pay some respects to Chad Demers, who passed away yesterday. Augustana assistant coach. I know it's always tough when something cancer obviously is a terrible thing, and so. Guys, I don't know. I'm not sure if you guys are in your interaction with Chad at all, but I just wanted to, our thoughts are with his family. I know he had a couple of kids and a wife, obviously. So, pretty devastating stuff right before the season kicks off, right? But Augustana, up and coming program, second year. Garrett Redboyne had some really nice things to say about him. But if any reflections before we really kind of get this thing going, Jared.
Yeah. I never got the privilege to meet him, but I think when you see just the kind of the heartbreak that comes out of, this entire situation, and not just the past couple of days, but really the past year, 2 years, right? What he meant to just the hockey community in general, and just so many players, so many coaches, and just so many people, it kind of forced you to take a step back and kind of think about things in a new light. And cancer is just truly the most unfair lot in life for some people. But I think back to the stuff that Trent Singer wrote about him last year, the stuff Brad Schlossman's wrote about him for the Grand Forks Herald. I mean, it's truly chilling to kind of go back and read some of that stuff, after his passing in the past, yesterday. So really, really sad stuff. Just a really crummy way to kick off a college hockey season. But, he just meant a lot to so many people.
Yeah, I never had any interactions with him, but I know, I've heard his name for a long time, just covering hockey, northern Minnesota and North Dakota area. I think he was Grafton kid, played for Fargo. I know he played for Air Force. I'm not sure if he played. Tom Serratori's son Matt played at Air Force, and I don't know if they overlapped or not, but I'm sure that they know each other. Just the hockey community in general and the college hockey community is small, so I'm sure that there's a lot of overlap. And I just adding on to what Jared says, it's always a tough situation when stuff like this happens, and especially because, like I said, the college hockey community is so small and everybody knows everybody. So, and I think a lot of them, just even if they don't know each other, it's sort of a brotherhood sort of mentality that people like to. Sorry, I just saw Fair State scores. This is distracting me, but it's just a sad situation, and I'm sure everybody's thinking about him and the Augustana program right now.
Absolutely, and well, obviously, there's a lot of good stuff to read over the last. As Jared mentioned, Trent, one of your guys' colleagues, did a really good job of covering this from the human side over everything else. So we did want to mention Chad, and our thoughts are with his family. This year we wanted to add some more content to the league. That's why whenever we get a chance, we give guys like Jared and Jack and Trent and maybe even get Brad on here at some point, because I know there's a hockey game tomorrow. I know it's an exhibition game, but playing Augustana. Augustana is playing North Dakota, team he covers. Anyway, we do have some highlights to get to. And some really, I forgot to even activate this, but is it running? No, it is. And I even need to update this now because we do have a goal, as Jack mentioned. Although Miami has just scored as well. So anyway, that's what you can expect, I guess, in the CCHA. They're halfway through the third period, and I need to pull the ticker down and make 2 adjustments now on it. Anyway, guys, thoughts here. We can get to some highlights from game one on the night, which was the first game that wrapped up. Really good from what we saw from Lake State. Anything before we get to some of the plays, or should we jump right in?
Yeah, you can just jump right into the plays, and we can kind of go over it after. I think it's
You got it.
Yeah.
Let's get to Lake Superior State here. And it was
and the puck controlled by the Lakers, but they fail to get out. A long shot, they score. They threw it in front, and it's banged in by Isaac Howard, one of their leading scorers from last year. Boy, you know what eye-hand coordination it takes to do that right there. He just batted that thing.
Howard, a pretty good goal scorer in his own right there. Got the scoring started first for Michigan State. I thought, for most of the first half of this game, I thought that the Lakers outplayed the Spartans. They were out shooting them pretty handily until obviously they're not just going to sit back, right? They're going to continue to press, and I think they closed down the shots on goal a little bit there. But thoughts on what we saw from that nice tip play from Howard?
Yeah, I think the point I'm about to make is kind of about the two goals they gave up as a whole, but both of those kind of were self-inflicted in a way. And I think in the immediate, you're kind of thinking, well, that's kind of a tough way to lose a game, but I think you can kind of take that and go into tomorrow and just think, well, hey, if we kind of limit some of those self-inflicted mistakes, now we have a win over the number 4 team in the country, and a lot of people's pick to compete for a Frozen Four, compete for a national championship, and so we'll get to the overtime goal too, because that was another weird one. But that's one of the best players in the country, Isaac Howard, making a really nice play there, and I don't think anybody's too surprised to see him on a score sheet.
And the puck controlled by the Lakers, but they fail to get out. A long shot, they
even sprung the Lakers for a nice rush there. But how about Venegoni just a couple of minutes later with really the best chance of the game for either team? Can't make contact.
Yeah, the contacts didn't help. Now the puck controlled by Lake Superior. They intercepted a pass, and back comes Tritt now, playing it ahead, getting it on the left side. The big man shoots, scores! Connor Milburn ties the hockey game. Upstairs on Augustine,
right over the defender's stick, and then Milburn. Golly, what a finish, Bill.
We've seen how many times we've seen Connor Milburn do that.
Yeah,
a lot.
That was a pretty impressive goal. And it seems like it's that top line too. I don't know if that was obviously Tripp, Milburn, and was that Backos out there too for Lake State on that play. I think that's going to be a pretty lethal line if they do that a couple times every game in the CCHA, especially.
Look at how much speed he got, kind of coming in on that zone entry to beat that defenseman to the net. I mean, it's to play with that much speed at that size is, kind of indicative of why he was one of the player of the years, preseason guys. So, but again, I don't know how many people are surprised to see Connor Milburn on a score sheet.
See if I can find that last one. I know there was a moment I want to bring up when
Now the Lakers knock it out the center. Here's a chance on a break. Laker player getting up there, shot it off the goal post. He rifled it off the left post. Another chance in front. They shot it off the post again. 2 shots off the left goal post as the Lakers look at it.
Either of those go in, it's obviously a completely different game when the Lakers never led into this thing, but that's how kind of close they were to having a lead on the number 4 team in the country.
Yeah, they're a first period turnover and a couple of posts away from having a shutout win at home in regulation over, one of the best teams in the country. That's impressive. But again, the self-inflicted mistakes that Lake State had on that first goal and then the overtime winner were ultimately the difference. And and that's going to be the case when you play a team of Michigan State's caliber. It comes down to that, and especially in close games like that, we see it. With Bemidji State all the time against the tough in-state opponents they play in non-conference. And I think back to North Dakota last year on Friday. The Friday night game on Black Friday. It's a bad turnover in the first period and a pretty preventable goal from the blue line that pushed that game to overtime. And, that's the difference in a game. So, But I think, like I said before, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it and say that's a really tough way to lose your season opener in a game you had a chance to win. Or you can say, look, we were preventable mistakes away from having a statement win to open the season against one of the best teams in the country.
Well, there were some technical difficulties on the overtime winner, but it was kind of a scrambly goal. Jared, if you wanted to give it a quick description.
Yeah, did Rourke Appleby hit that in himself? It was hard to see.
I'm not sure. It barely trickled over the line.
Right.
You can go find the highlights right now, actually, on CCHA.com, but you cannot find them in the show. So that's, I guess,
it was a weird one. A really weird way
yeah.
to have a good hockey game, but that's the way it goes.
Ferris has tied things. That game is wild. If you're second screening us, I appreciate it. If you're just watching, if you just want to go watch, if you only have one screen, you want to go watch Ferris, that's perfectly okay. We'll still be here when that game ends. But another impressive game, in an overtime loss. So it's not it's a little bit of credit there to Lake State. I mean, we're giving them credit.
Yeah,
in the sense that we're giving them credit, but they're also getting credit, right, for taking that game to overtime.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, like I said, I mean, Michigan State's a team that I think you ask kind of around the country. There's a lot of people picking that team to be in the Frozen Four, and I in my opinion, they have one of the top two best goalies in the country, and I don't think many people would disagree with that. And on the flip side, I mean, Rourke Appleby, and a true freshman making his first start, is, I mean, what did he make? 32 saves, and I mean, I don't know how much more you could ask out of Lake State against one of the favorites to come out of the Big Ten.
Well, we got a special guest coming on the show, guys.
I know, I see him down there.
Wait,
and he's wearing the same hat as Jack.
I actually purposely changed when I saw Jack wearing it. I was wearing a different hat, and I saw that, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to grab this."
I was actually looking for my Tigers hat, but I couldn't find it. It's somewhere in the house, and I didn't have time to grab it.
That's probably for the best.
Guys, Brad, thanks for coming on. I literally just emailed Brad 10 minutes ago, and he's on here. But we do have obviously Augie and North Dakota tomorrow in an exhibition game. So I did want to talk to him a little bit about that. I know you had a chance to speak with, I believe, and write about Chad, and we talked about him at the top of the show, Brad. So if you want to just add anything you kind of had to say about Coach Demers there, with your experience with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough news. I mean, it feels like it was, remember like yesterday sitting down at the Red Pepper in the South End of Grand Forks in 2018, and him telling me about his diagnosis, and saying that the really difficult part for him was that a success story is if he makes it 10 years. And he said, I'm still going to be a young guy. It's just really difficult that he's gone. I'm sure you guys all said it, just a great guy, has been for a long time. I remember covering him even in high school when he was playing for Grafton Park River. A lot of talent on the ice, but off the ice, just such a personable guy that anyone who gets to meet him is impacted by him.
And we do want to say that Brad's written some great stuff on him. Trent, great stuff about him, and I'm sure more stories will be told. So it's important when things like this happen. I know, I lost my brother 3 years ago, and like it's very hard. And the best thing to do to keep these kind of people is to keep them in your thoughts and to talk about them and tell stories about them. That surely keeps them alive. And so that's definitely important. And we did. These guys, Jared and Jack, both added those things earlier on in the program. We talked about a really good showing. Back to the hockey guys. We can get there. Lake Superior State was like a couple of posts away from having an even better result than they did have in the overtime loss. We're going to get to the meat of this one, and probably the thing that a lot of CCHA fans are excited about, and that was Minnesota State going to Michigan here, and I believe I have everything from that game, so we don't worry about that here, guys. Getting things started here with well, first. A little indicative of how this one was going early on, and I think you can hear me over the game. But Zach Kranick with a really good chance there to get things going. Michigan actually scores the first one, but importantly, the Mavs come back here. And if I can pull if I do a good job of pulling the box score up here, then I can more accurately get these out here. Here we go. This is what we wanted. And that's Brian Carabas, transferred to Minnesota State last year, scoring on former Ferris State goalie Logan Stein for those scoring at home. There's going to be a lot of that this year, I think. And it was important to get that tying goal, obviously. That's what they kind of came in a hurry then after that for Minnesota State. Thoughts on that one? It was kind of a blown play there for Michigan. I think we see this in another goal that the Mavericks get. Excuse me, I was corrected. They would like to be Mavericks from here on out here. But thoughts on that goal? Carabas has been kind of a little spark plug for them since he came to Minnesota State.
That's oh, go ahead.
I mean, that's a guy Luke knew well. He coached him, I believe, at Sioux City. So that was one of the advantages he had coming over, is that Luke knew the USHL really well, probably knew what guys he liked, and whether they played for him or against him. And I think you saw him pick up some of those guys, and Carabas was one of them. Bolson's looks like he's going to play a really big role too. He was great in his last year in the USHL, so I don't think that's a surprise to see what he's going to be able to do. So one of the little bit of advantage to having a guy that knew the USHL so well.
Was I missed the first period. Was that play challenged for offsides? Because that far side winger looked awfully close to being offside.
The one I just showed you?
Yeah.
The Carabas goal? Yeah, I don't think it was. But I think one of those things. It might have been a case where he was hovering over the line at least, so they would never overturned it. But yeah, that looked really close. Good eye there, Jared. It reminds me of the North Dakota Bemidji State game last year. Sorry for bringing that up. Anyway, Brett Moravec going Bobby Orr there to give the Mavs a 2-1 lead. Psychos with the assist on the play, taking advantage of a mistake, right, is what happened there. Jack, anything from that goal that you noticed? I mean,
you pointed out the Bobby Orr thing. I was pretty impressed to keep his composure there after being tripped by Stein basically before the goal went in. Surprised they didn't call that penalty. But I thought that was a pretty. I mean, I didn't get to watch that game at all, but it seemed like it was sort of a key play since U of M never really got back into it after going down 2-1. And I don't know. That was sort of in the beginning of the period, right?
Just about midway through the second, yeah. 4 minutes after the Carabas goal.
Okay.
Then I guess a very important goal. I mean, you take a 2-1 lead on the road. That's great, but you have to extend. And early in the third, just a minute in, we got this from the newest Maverick. No call there from BTN Plus, but that's Rhett Pitlick, former Golden Gopher, who signed on minutes, hours, days before the season, and he picks up his first goal, and it turns out to be a big one because Michigan did get a late goal there. Obviously, we'll show how Minnesota extended it further, but thoughts on the play there? I think you could call it a mistake. It's a good read by Pitlick, but what do you think of that goal, the first one that he scored for Minnesota State?
Yeah, I mean that's a hell of a read by Pitlick, but again, I mean it's a tough neutral zone pass to make, and I think that kind of, I mean, if you're going to look at a goal that kind of exemplified Michigan's inexperience, or at least inexperience playing together in this iteration of that team, that's kind of it. Because, I mean, not that you're cautious of, which specific player is in front of you at each specific time, but I mean, you can't make that. You can't make that pass in the neutral zone with Rhett Pitlick there. I mean, that's just, I don't know. That's one where you look at tape on Monday and you're just begging coach not to scream at you.
Brad or Jack, anything on just Pitlick in general? I haven't heard from you guys on his addition, because I obviously haven't talked to you guys, and it's been not too long since he joined the program.
I mean, I definitely, when I found out the news of him joining, I mean, one player doesn't necessarily make a hockey team, but I think he's the type of guy that could change how many. I mean, that just adds so many goals to a team, and I think it probably changes people's perceptions of where they're going to finish. I think I had him at 4th or 5th even, and I probably would move them up to maybe even first. I mean, I could pick them as first with knowing that he was going to be there, just because that adds such a strong offensive player to an already pretty good team. So obviously him getting a goal right away, his first game, sort of announcing himself to the CCHA, is, I think, an important thing for the Mavericks, just to show what they've got.
And Brad, with not a lot of college hockey going on tonight, I'm sure that with North Dakota coming to town in a couple of weeks here, that Coach Barry and probably had their eyes on this game.
Yeah, I know this was the game I was most interested in following, just because it's a team I'm going to see pretty soon. And it's certainly Minnesota State took advantage of some Michigan mistakes, and that's what good teams are able to do. And I think you saw Pitlick's speed and able to make that play there. And I think he just gives them a different dynamic. Like, Minnesota State has a lot of really good, solid players, and now they're able to add in a game breaker into that mix, and a guy who is going to put up a lot of offense for Minnesota State. So I think that definitely adds quite a bit to a team that I had them second in the CCHA before I knew I didn't move them, but I already thought they were going to be pretty good. I thought before the Pitlick edition, they already had the best defenseman in the league in Evan Murr. I thought they had the best goalie in the league in Tracy. I thought they had arguably the best transfer coming in, and Ben and Casa. So, they have a lot of firepower on that team up and down the lineup, I think.
Jared will probably debate you on Matthias Scholl there, but
yeah, I mean, he's obviously very good too.
I debate you on Cole Moore as well.
That's okay. That's perfectly reasonable, I think. And he picked up a big win, which you don't have any highlights from. The game was on Flow Sports, looking to get some of those, at least for our site. But the Tides have tides have changed there, and we don't have access to flow anymore. Anyway, want to move on to another first in this first goal, and it happens to be a Columbus Blue Jackets draft pick. Good looking shot there from Luke Ashton. He's a big kid, and that was a pretty, talented or skillful shot, I should say. Thoughts on the finish or on Ashton getting that initial goal in the first game on the big stage, right, at Yost?
I mean, what a find from Jordan Power. I mean, I don't know how he saw him. It looked like he was covered by that forward near the blue line, and Ashton just stepped up into that pass, and I'm not sure how you can get a cross ice pass in your defensive zone like that, like if you're Michigan. But yeah, great shot. I mean, that's kind of why he was drafted, right?
Jared's trying to take all credit away from the Mavericks tonight. I love it.
I mean,
just defensive break. Every single goal is a defensive breakdown. I get it.
Well, it takes some skill to finish off those defensive breakdowns. Sometimes you'll watch a game and you'll see a team have breakdowns and someone not be able to finish, and you just forget about that the breakdowns even happened. But the really good teams are the ones that you have 4 defensive breakdowns and they bury 3 of them. That's what the really good teams can do. So Minnesota State able to do that tonight and show some of the pretty finishes.
Jack, anything to add on Ashton? I mean, this is kind of, if you could ask Michigan, or you could ask a Mavericks fan or coach what they could have gotten out of game 1. I don't think you could have gotten much more. I mean, Tracy did make a number of saves. You can see the full highlights on CCHA.com as well. We won't get to every single stop. We're still working out some of this is the first time we've ever done this, so they have something we never miss. But
I was gonna say, I think Michigan played at Mankato last year or 2 years ago.
It was last year, I think.
Last year. Yeah. I think this may be the second time ever they played him, first time in Ann Arbor. So to go into Yost for the first time ever and play like that against Michigan, I think it's a pretty impressive first game of the season win. And I feel like it's one of those type of wins that usually, a lot of times historically when the CCHA teams play against these type of bigger teams, it's sort of usually the other way around. Like Michigan was kind of the one that looked like they were not fully all together. They hadn't gelled yet. Whereas Minnesota State, I thought, looked like they were the seasoned team. And obviously, I mean, they've got pretty much everybody back plus a couple of really good players. So that kind of makes sense. But I feel like it's maybe the inverse of what we often see with CCHA teams playing against Big Ten and CHC type opponents. So it's a nice that I think this is like sort of a statement win for Minnesota State, especially, but also just with some of the other results we've seen tonight, just like, oh, that's a pretty good first night for a lot of the teams in the league, especially seeing Minnesota State beat Michigan in Ann Arbor, I think is a big one.
Yeah, Michigan in the offseason, they lose Brindley, McGroarty, Nazer, Duke, Casey. So a lot of big names lost. If there's one team that's not feeling bad about a team losing a bunch of big names in one offseason, it's probably Minnesota State. After last year, they lost so many guys and did a really good job adapting to that situation and have come back and get a big win over a Michigan team, like you guys said, that probably is still trying to fit guys into new spots and with all the losses they had in the offseason.
I wrote a note on this just yesterday. So this is only the second time they've ever played. They played once before at the 2021 Icebreaker Championship that Minnesota State Michigan won 3-2. So okay. I must have been thinking of UMass or somebody that came through.
They had some BU games, I know.
Minnesota maybe that's what it was.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, this is only the second time they've ever played. But it's a cool trip for the Mavericks to make, right? To go up to Yost and play another power. It reminds me of some of those, like in football, some of those big when the SEC plays a big, just an early season game when a lot of schools are playing quote unquote cupcakes when you go and challenge yourself. I think it's a really cool idea.
You know what? I think Michigan came and played St. Cloud at the beginning of the season last year. I think that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
of.
yeah,
It's like a similar sort of.
Yep.
Michigan playing St. Cloud is not a matchup you see very often either. So that's what I was kind of thinking.
Yep. And not to to kind of win the good graces back of the Minnesota State faithful, but I mean, it's like you go down 1-0 in the second period at Yost. I mean, that's obviously we talked, like Brad talked about the losses that Michigan had, and they are so significant, and they still have to iron through all that, but you're still down 1-0 on the road. It is really impressive to rope off 4 straight goals and not really give Michigan really any breathing room to come back in this game. I know it was 2-1 going into the third, but they kind of stepped on their throat there in the third period, and that's, like Jack said, that's the mark of a seasoned team.
We have one more goal from this one we're going to show, because I'm not great at importing Michigan goals. But anyway, here we go. And it's I think it's sometimes easy to forget about guys like Adam Isley, but he's a veteran, and this just adds to the depth, right, that Minnesota State has.
Luke Ashton looking smooth for a 6'6" guy. A couple of nifty plays at the blue line there.
Absolutely. No, I mean, they just look like they've been playing for a month, and Michigan definitely didn't.
How sick is Logan Stein of playing the CCHA by this point?
Think he's going to play tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Let's see. Let's check out some goals from the game that's still going on. They're in overtime, and we're all going to find out together what's going on here.
Working it back here in the defensive zone. Ambrosio here, who sends it back behind the net. Now it comes back to the near side wall for the Redhawks. Miami able to keep it in here, but they lost it, and now an opportunity. Breakaway here for the Bulldogs. And the shot is in! A goal from Cole Birch here for Ferris State to tie this one up shorthanded.
Against Breveris, Bulldogs even it at 2-2.
2-2 with 11:39 to play, and they did that with 11 seconds left on the Miami power play.
So that tied the game at 2. We'll just run through all these, and then we can start commenting.
This is the lineup that Miami wants right now.
Ambrosio sends this one just below the circles here for Miami. Back across the ice here for the Redhawks. Hutchison with it from the CCHA logo. Back to Ambrosio. They're setting it up nicely here, and they get the goal on the pass across the ice here, and the Redhawks have taken a 3-2 lead here on the Bulldogs. Leading the charge here on the goal celebration. He may have got the goal. He was the one that shot it initially here from the near side.
And then
back behind the Bulldog goal is the Redhawks being patient with it as Battalions has it here for Miami, and Cox lost it. The Bulldogs with another opportunity. Galt the other way. Sends this one into the net, and a goal for the Bulldogs to tie it back up.
Almost a replay of the last goal right there as the Bulldogs get a leak out. They get a breakaway.
With the goal for Ferris State, the 6th of his career and the first of the season with 8:24 to play in the third. Ties this one right back up at 3 goals apiece.
So Caden Galt getting that tying goal. It's been a back and forth game. That's a pretty good illustration of how this one has gone. And this is a team that is in. So we have an NCHC CCHA matchup here. Brad covers North Dakota out of the NCHC. Anyone can chime in here on this one. Not really knowing what to expect from either of these two clubs. Miami, I think, won 1 game in the league last year, and Ferris was finished last in the CCHA. So on paper, maybe an even fight here, but it's kind of what we've gotten.
Yeah, Cole Birch, interesting. I saw he was listed on the top line tonight. I haven't seen minutes on how many everyone played, but getting a goal, he hardly played last year. He was only played about 3 games for Western Michigan, and I'm sure he was pretty excited to get in the lineup. And interesting to see how high up he is in the lineup at Ferris State, and I'll be curious to see what impact he can have on the Bulldogs this year. But that's a good start for him.
That was a shorthanded goal from Birch at the time, made it 2-2. Assist to Holden Dole, so that's his second point of the game. He scored the opening goal for the Bulldogs, and then Miami coming right back with a power play goal from Filion Christoph, and then it was Caden Galt scoring the tying goal. Jared, Jack, any surprises, or is it kind of what you expected from these two? I know that now the Bulldogs have a former Michigan. They kind of not traded goalie. I guess they did. It is like trading goalies, right? Noah West flipping over to the Bulldogs. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, it's. I mean, look, I had this problem. Just when I was looking at the beginning of the season, trying to figure out sort of who the players to watch for Ferris were. Obviously, Travis Shouty is a guy that I know, and he's been there for a while. He's a captain. Nico DeVita's there, but I feel like a lot of these guys that they have are probably guys that, I mean, they lost Luigi Benincasa. It's probably their best offensive player. But just a lot of newer guys that haven't really had big roles. See the end of this.
I'm watching the same thing you are. I'm listening, Jack, but I'm trying. The Bulldogs should have just ended there twice.
Yeah.
There's 27.
It just seems like they have a lot of guys that aren't maybe don't have as much name recognition because they weren't big scorers before. So just getting these guys involved in the game on the score sheet, sort of having their team sort of figure itself out a little bit in this first game against another team that's on a similar level is probably good for them, and maybe just good for us to probably get more familiar with some of their players that we're not as familiar with, because I certainly I'm not as familiar with Holden Dole's game as quote Jack. But obviously he's looked pretty good today, so
yeah, a couple points for him. Yeah, I think he had 1 goal on his career coming in, so that's and what Brad just mentioned there with Birch, who didn't get a shot, and that's the positives of the transfer portal, right? Is guys that haven't gotten an opportunity, they can go somewhere and get a chance to contribute.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's also worth noting too, they were down 3 separate times in this game, and I don't, in the Ferris games I caught last year, it seemed like, down a goal in the third period, you kind of wanted to see him show a little bit more fight, and maybe that was a result of who they were playing, where they were playing, all of the factors that go into that. But I got to think Bob Daniels is pretty happy, erasing 3 separate 1-goal deficits against an NCHC team to open the season with a roster that is, relatively new, and a lot of guys looking to either revive their career or, kind of put themselves on the map, at least on a CCHA level or maybe even on a national level. So, it's really impressive. But
how many? Do you remember how many? I know in the CCHA media day he said they had a lot of freshmen. I don't remember how many he said, but it seemed like it was quite a bit, right?
I don't remember how many he said. I'll pull it up though.
All right, Gerald, do that research. Before we go, we don't want to spend take up too much time of these guys' nights here, but I'm very happy you guys decided to come on. And obviously, it won't be an every night thing for these guys. They got teams to cover and things like that. But when they have an open night, or they can come on for a few minutes even and talk about add some insight, we love it. That's why we have this. Of course, this stays up on YouTube, so all of our fans, if you go to bed early or you're just finding this, welcome. We try to do this. We're calling it CCHA Final Horn. We're not quite there yet, actually. The idea is to kind of start it off towards the end of the last few games, and I know this Miami Ferris State game is taking it to the max here because they're going to a shootout. But we do want to talk about, before we let these guys go, tomorrow and Sunday, a pretty big slate, and we do have Brad here, so I do want to mention North Dakota and Augustana. They're playing for the first time, although not officially. Brad, what do you expect from this game with all the kind of, a lot going on with Augustana heading up to Ralph Engelstad Arena?
Yeah, it should be a fun one. Officially, it'll start in a couple of years. They have signed a deal to play a series in Sioux Falls and a series in Grand Forks in a couple of years. So this will kind of be a first taste of it. Some fun storylines with Will Howard from Augie is Grand Forks Central alum. Will Howard's dad, Tarek Howard, was on UND's 1987 national title team. And Tarek Howard's roommate in college in the dorms was Brad Berry. So kind of that's the hockey world. And so Will Howard knows Brad Berry extremely well and the whole coaching staff. The Hennon brothers are from Hallock, Minnesota, which does not produce a ton of Division I hockey players. So it'll be kind of a homecoming for the Hennons as well. And that should be a fun side story with some players coming back from this area. And it's, that Brad Berry said, the start of an Interstate 29 rivalry this weekend. And I'm sure there will be a lot of future matchups to come. And, the last connection, I think, is Josh Morton, the athletic director who started hockey at Augustana. He is a former North Dakota quarterback, a football player. He was an administrator here. So he got to see a lot of how Division I hockey programs were run when he was an administrator here. And I'm sure he took some of those ideas and said, no, these are things that we need to do at Augustana. And I think everyone would agree the Vikings are way ahead of schedule, winning 12 games the first year, going out to Colorado and beating CC, tying Denver. I mean, beating Arizona State, that's a pretty interesting first year. If you go back and look at all the other programs that went D1 and saw what their first year looked like, it's pretty impressive first year.
Yeah, I look at St. Thomas, what they did in their first year, and look at what they're turned into now. I mean, it's a little bit different, right? They transitioned from D3 to D1. But
yeah.
I mean, if we're talking exceeding expectations, I mean, you have to think that, played a little bit of a part in Augustana getting that year bump in the promotion to full member status in the CCHA. I actually, I wanted to piggyback off of one of Brad's points because I got to cover one of the Hennon brothers in high school when I was covering sports in Detroit Lakes. I think it's the youngest one. Is that Tyler?
Mm-hmm.
Watching him play high school hockey was unbelievable on that team. I mean, it was like
something like that.
He had 125 points his senior year, and half of his team couldn't skate. Like, he played 35 minutes a night.
I was gonna say, how many players do they even have on their team? Like 10?
I know there were it wasn't a full roster. Like, they played 1.5 lines. I tried keeping track of the minutes on my phone on one of the games he played, and he played I want to say it felt like 12 of the 17 minutes in the third period, and they were down by 4 goals to a 500 Detroit Lakes team. I'm glad he's getting a shot to play, D1 hockey somewhere, because you get guys like that put up those gaudy numbers, and no-name towns, or in this one it's a conglomerate of towns from Kitson County. But he was awesome to watch play in high school against a admittedly mid Detroit Lakes team.
Do we want to talk about some of the other games going on tomorrow and Sunday? A lot of teams just playing one game, some exhibitions. Anything stand out to you guys? I know there's a lot of games going on. CCHA ties and some, Minnesota Duluth. Bemidji is a kind of sneaky one, right? I know it's team Jared covers.
Yeah, I mean, I could just talk about that one.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a really exciting start for Bemidji State. I think Sarah Torrey wanted an exhibition before the season started. but this is kind of the way it shook out this year. And but the consensus around the Beavers is they absolutely love their forward depth. That is going to be the thing that they're going to lean on early in the year, at least. That's kind of the vibe around the team. Really, when you look at it from what they had to replace on a forward end, you're only replacing Leighton Road and Carter Jones as your two truly impactful forwards. And granted, I mean, that's 60 some points right there. So it's not too easy to replace 60 some points, but you bring in Carter Radcliffe, who had 30 for Niagara the past couple of years. And then you get to a really talented freshman in Jackson Panzer. And you got a lot of guys, a lot of freshmen last year that played minutes that maybe they weren't expecting to play, that are, expected to make a little bit of a jump. And they're going against the Duluth team that had a little bit more turnover on their forward end. And so I think that, they're really eager to at least get out to test that forward depth right away in a tough game on the road. And, they didn't play well in Duluth last year. They got down 3-0 in the first period, and it was kind of curtains after that. But I think they scored at least one with an empty net with a goalie pulled last year, and then Leighton Road at the post with about 3 seconds left in regulation would have won the game in regulation. And so yeah, it's exciting. I'll be there, so I won't be able to do the final horn unless you want me driving through Cohasset on StreamYard. So, but no, it'll be fun.
Don't ask me to make that call.
Yeah.
Any other games that you're looking forward to? I know there's some exhibitions. Obviously, we talked about North Dakota and Augustana, the Bowling Green. We didn't get to Bowling Green. Go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say the obviously Michigan Tech and Northern Michigan exhibition could be an interesting one, just with all the turnover that NMU has had, and Tech trying to get sort of back in the groove without like Pietila. I don't know how that's going to go. Everybody's going to play. I feel like it could get a little dicey. I don't know. Just
Michigan Tech, they also had, not to the extent of Northern Michigan, but I mean, they also, like Jack alluded to it, the turnover they had too. So, I mean,
yeah,
that's kind of the big question for them. It's not just goalie. I mean, who replaces Ryland Mosley? Who replaces Kyle Kukkonen? Replaces Logan Pietila, right? I mean, it's not just Blake Pietila. I mean, they have things to figure out early on in the season as well.
Yeah, I guess you said we didn't talk about BG, but I didn't see. I assume Colmore started that game.
He did, yes.
Pierce? Okay.
Yeah, Colmore. They won 2-1. Yeah, we're a little bit in the dark on them.
32 saves for Colmore, by the way, Brad. Just going to throw that out there.
Okay, yeah, he's just.
I'm not going to argue goalies with Jared. He knows he's a goalie guy.
That's true.
Like, I know my limits, and I ain't arguing goalies with Jared.
Perfectly reasonable. What should we expect from St. Cloud? I know it's not till Sunday, but St. Cloud and St. Thomas. I know that the Tommies got their first win against the Huskies last year in pretty dramatic fashion, overtime up there or over in St. Cloud, and it was a 1-0 St. Cloud win on the return trip to home and home. This is just the one game here. The Tommies are playing an exhibition that's also not going to be viewable tomorrow against Manitoba. But anyway, what do we know about the St. Cloud team, Brad?
I think this is a really interesting one because I have St. Thomas winning the CCHA, and I have St. Cloud being the sneaky team in the NCHC. I think St. Thomas last year looked really good, and once injuries started, that derailed them a little bit. And some of the CC players they have coming over, I think, are going to really help them. Especially on the back end, Foley can really be an impactful player for St. Thomas. St. Cloud, I think, is the really sneaky, deep, solid, all-around team. And they have a couple freshmen that are going to be really impactful in Austin Bernovic and Gavin Thorson. So that's going to be a huge challenge for the Tommies. But for a team that I'm guessing wants to try to win the CCHA, these are good tests for them.
What do you guys think, Tommies? I know. Where did you guys pick the Tommies in our media poll, Jared?
I wasn't allowed to do a tie for first, so I had him get second.
I had him at second as well. I think Jared and I both had Bemidji and St. Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, if I got to redo the media poll for after the Rhett Pitlick signing, it would have been a 3-way tie for first.
Yeah.
But with Bowling Green,
You're like the coach as the player of the year.
Yeah.
Did you have BG at third? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I did. I had Minnesota State 4, Tech 5, and then I think Augie 6.
Does how a team open their first couple of weekends? I mean a ton to your predictions. I know Bemidji State didn't start terribly well, and either the Michigan Tech, they didn't win a game in October. Brad, you're shaking your head.
No, I don't get too high or too low on any singular result. I think that's a lesson in college hockey. You know, things ebb and flow. Teams are good.
I think it also kind of depends on the team too. Like if you're talking about a team that has like, Northern Michigan, right? Like they have 4 returning players from last year, and whether it goes extremely well in an exhibition or extremely poorly, you're looking at a team that's going to be completely different 2 months from now, and then completely different 2 months from then as well. But you look at a team like Minnesota State where they look so cohesive tonight, and they go into a top 10 team in the country. Granted, it's a preseason poll, but they go into a top 10 team in the country and kind of take it to them, at least in the last half of that game. That holds a little bit more weight to me because they feel like a team that's probably going to look a little bit similar now 2 months from now than maybe a team that had more of that dramatic turnover. So it does depend on the team, and it depends on who that team is playing. But kind of like Brad said, I mean, you get too high or too low from one game or one series to open a season. I mean, it's not that smart.
Let's just remember there was a team, Denver, lost in a shootout to South Dakota school that had been a D1 program for 2 months. And that Denver team went and won the national title. So
hey, you're talking about my alma mater. Maybe Augustana was wise beyond their years.
I mean, clearly they have been, but I'm just big picture. Remember Denver fans, they're like, oh my goodness, this team just gave up 5 goals and lost in a shootout to a school that's been D1 for 2 months. Yeah. We find out throughout the season, A, Augie was pretty good. B, Denver was pretty good.
Right. And that's kind of the point where if you're Denver, you shouldn't. You're not hovering the panic button over November shootout loss. But if you're Augustana, you're like, look at what we did against Denver, Colorado College.
Yeah,
this is something for us to build on.
And to your point, maybe that series against Bowling Green is what really sprung Augie last year. Remember, they go to Wisconsin and they don't score a goal, and then right after that, come back and beat Bowling Green twice, and that might have really been a springboard to, oh man, like we're a pretty good team.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. I think we got to just about everybody. These series that are played tonight obviously finish up tomorrow. Before we get out of here, just any thoughts on the first night of hockey? I'm sure I'll have you guys back in some capacity throughout the year because it's really nice to have your guys' thoughts on here, or also just me running through highlights, which I'm sure people don't care to see. They can just do that themselves. But I'd like to add the thought of doing this was to add a little bit of context to things, and having you guys who follow the game and cover the game in different capacities around the area, I think adds a little bit, and we can I don't get a chance to talk to you guys that often. So at least Brad and Jack. I talk to Jared like every day. So
too much.
Yeah.
Anything to add? Just kind of maybe closing thoughts on the night, and also any surprises from the few games we did see, or what we're looking forward to tomorrow. We'll go around the horn. Jack, go ahead.
I mean, I guess I'm pretty surprised about Minnesota State still. Not even the fact that they won, the fact that it was 5-2, and they just looked so cohesive. That's probably the biggest. Going to be the biggest result in the weekends, if I'm being honest. I just thought they looked really good all around. So they're dangerous.
Brad?
I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Get to be back in the rink for the first time in a while. Get to see a program I've never seen before. It's an exhibition game, but it's still fun to see action in person. So I've watched some on the webcasts tonight, and I'm excited to see action in person tomorrow.
Absolutely, yeah. And Jared, what about you?
Brad took mine. I was just going to say I'm so happy to be back in a hockey rink again. But I'll give a shout out to all the CCHA goalies tonight. Rourke Appleby, really good game against Michigan State. Alex Tracy goes on the road, picks up a win against Michigan, and Cole Moore 32 saves. I mean, it's it's impressive. So
you had to give more shout outs to goalie just for Brad. I see what you're doing.
I have to. No, it was
Goalie Nation.
The goalie shout out would have been there, but regardless if Shaw's topped on or not, always find ways to give shout outs to the goalies. So
totally fair. As you can see, Jack writes for USCHO, Jared for Bemidji Premier, Brad up in Fargo there, or
Grand Forks.
Excuse me, I misspoke. But yeah, you can follow all these guys. They're all great follows on social as well, covering the teams there. You can follow the CCHA on Blue Sky, as well as Twitter and YouTube and everything else. You're watching this on YouTube, so hopefully you follow and subscribe. I can say that now at the bottom. Do that. You can see when this comes out. We record the CCHA show live now. That's our podcast, which you can also then listen to later. But if you want to see the interviews that we do with players and coaches on Mondays, you can do that too, and that pops up if you subscribe to and click that notification. Guys, thanks for coming on and talking some college hockey. Really looking forward to the season. As they all mentioned, they get to go see hockey in person. Sometimes I get to do it too, but it's not that often. All right, have a good night, guys, and I'll talk to you all later.
Sweet. All right, I'm going to bed. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks